Sat Sri Akal, welcome to Ammabrowngirl. My name's Amma. On today's episode, I'll be talking about what I've learnt whilst traveling. Before I start this episode, I just want to take a moment to be extremely grateful for the help that I've received on my Instagram story in terms of helping me pick my episodes. Today's episode was actually tied with either me making an episode about what I've learnt whilst traveling or actually taking a break for the first time in over a year just to enjoy New Year's. Now, I have to admit, I like keeping the streak in terms of saying that, I've never missed an episode. And plus, before I went traveling, I did say that I'd want to stay as consistent as I can. And I meant what I said. And I feel guilty for even taking a break, which I know is so wrong because taking a break is very important. But at the same time, it's something I truly enjoy doing, despite having to go through an absolute madness this morning to find a setup. I'm in the most randomest setup. I'm in some apartment block where there's going to be people passing, but people are so unfazed. There's literally a woman sitting down right now who probably doesn't understand what I'm saying, or maybe she does, I don't know, but I'm just here, gonna record my episode. We'll see how it goes. I think someone's coming out of the lift right now, but this is the reality of having to find places to record and produce this podcast whilst traveling. It is not as easy as it looks, but it forces you to be extremely confident and not give a shit about your surroundings or who's looking at you or whatever. It just makes you more confident. So what I've decided to do is stick with 5 points that I've learned whilst traveling, and hopefully that will be helpful for you guys if you are thinking about traveling. And it gives me the opportunity to have an extension to this episode because there's hundreds of things I've learned and I could talk about this topic forever. But to make sure I have some balance and rest, I'm going to make it a shorter episode so that I can enjoy New Year's. So to start with, number 1 is confidence. This comes as no surprise, but traveling forces you to gain your confidence in terms of your ability to perform, trusting your gut and your instincts, and also your appearance as well. I'll go ahead and explain each one separately because there's a lot to learn from each one. The first one I mentioned, ability to perform. You'll be in new situations, locations, and meet new people where you will need to think. Like you'll actually need to use your brain to get to point A to B. And it sounds so simple, but it's not. Because when you're at home, you're comfortable with everything around you, you know where things are, you know how your day-to-day works. But when you're in a new situation, you're going to be forced to be self-sufficient, which is a wonderful thing. Now that I have solo traveled, I feel like when I solo travel again, I'll be absolutely fine. I'll be able to figure things out and try my best to, get to point A to B. As you do, everyone has to start from somewhere. But if it was old me, I think without solo traveling, I'd be a lot more nervous and be a lot more fearful, which is completely natural. But solo traveling really forces you to perform in situations where you're uncomfortable. The second point I mentioned was trusting yourself. I've always been a very confident person, but sometimes there'd be a level of self-doubt in terms of my own thoughts and opinions. And it wasn't always like that, but it was definitely as a result of being in a few situations that knocked my confidence in the first place. I don't know how to explain it, but the best way I can put it is sometimes I'll have a thought or an opinion and I'll think that it's not credible. And because I'd think that my thoughts and opinion weren't credible, I'd invalidate myself and think that, surely that must not be true, or surely what I'm saying doesn't make sense. But when you travel, you meet so many people that you might not ever see again. You spend one afternoon with them. And through conversation, I learned to trust myself a little bit more in terms of what I'm saying and not invalidate myself. So whatever I did say to these strangers was true to me. And it doesn't make it less credible just because, this other person might not agree with my opinion. If anything, it makes it better to have different opinions and discuss different opinions and even have debates as well. The last point I mentioned was appearance in terms of my self-confidence. To provide some context, my last manager, who was from hell, really didn't help with my self-confidence. And I'm not here to slander him because I've done the healing, I've done the inner work. I understand that he had bigger problems that were bigger than me, which resulted in him being an actual cunt. But I never thought that a bad manager or an environment could have such a hold over me to make me feel so low about myself. And this isn't only me, but that can happen to anyone. With the constant bullying and the mentions about my appearance and what I was wearing and the constant communication about, Amma's doing this and Amma's doing that, I'm not even surprised that it affected my confidence because there was a level of manipulation within that. And when you manipulate anyone, regardless of how intelligent they are or, how they are as a person, manipulation is out there to get you. So I'm not surprised that I felt so low about myself. But the thing with traveling is that no one cares about what you look like. You can wear a t-shirt and shorts, and that's what most backpackers wear as well. I'm not saying that that's all I wore. I'd like to think I dressed up a little bit more because that's just who I am as a person. And that's what makes me feel confident at most. But you don't think about these things in terms of anyone making a comment about what you look like. After some time, I didn't only raise my confidence, but I also realized my value and self-worth. Like, I really, really understood that I am truly beautiful. And I don't mean that in a vain way. I say it with so much gratitude that being kind to others, having genuine intentions towards others, and never taking shit from anyone is something that I've learned whilst traveling. The second thing I've learned is traveling cannot be used to escape the reality you so deeply hate. Many backpackers and travelers explained that whilst we might think that traveling is the answer to all our problems, it isn't. And at some point, we all thought that. Even I thought that. It's definitely an amazing way to change up your environment. And I agree, sometimes you need to change your environment just to find yourself or just have a different outlook on life. You have a breakup, go travel. You've got cancer, go and travel. You don't know what you're doing with your life, go and travel. But the human brain is wired in such a way that our brains become bored again. Sure, I'd rather be depressed in a beautiful hotel in Vietnam, but at the same time, I've got to do the work. The third thing I've learned is having enough money is better than not having enough money, which sounds like common sense, but this whole idea of budget backpacking can be fun. It teaches you a lot. But at the same time, constantly having to worry about eating the most cheapest meal and going to the most cheapest activities becomes really exhausting after some time. I do think it's a good experience sometimes. And there were points in Vietnam where I did try to budget and I tried to go to the most cheapest places. And either way, I'm someone who doesn't really waste money in the first place. Like, if I need to buy something and I like it, I will. Nothing is holding me back because I feel like I will make a calculated decision to go and buy whatever I need. But after some time, it got really exhausting, especially with the fact that I worked my ass off for a whole year to save up more than enough money to travel comfortably. The point I'm trying to make is that it's not a flex to have all these passport stamps and go to this many countries and, say that I've done 43 countries or whatever, when in that country, you're literally having to decide between eating the cheapest meal and going for an activity. That's not fun. That's exhausting. The fourth thing I learned was to not overconsume on what you don't need. I took the Osprey Fairview 40-litre backpack with me because it's designed for women. And I don't care what anyone says. That backpack is just chef's kiss. I literally took like 3-4 tops, 2 trousers, 2 shorts, nothing crazy. I really condensed all my stuff into like one packing cube. Backpacking really made me realize to be grateful for what I have. I just went with the idea that if there is anything that I actually need, I will just buy it. And turns out there wasn't anything I needed because there's nothing that I don't have. Now with Vietnam, there is nothing that you can't find, and it's so cheap that it is at times really mind-blowing. But just because I'm in another country and I can afford to buy it, do I really need it? No. Now there's nothing wrong with shopping, like buy what you want, enjoy your time. But at the same time, you've got to think about baggage allowance. And secondly, your fake North Face bag is not going to go up with you when you die. The final point that I've learned, and I believe the most important point, is there is no right way to travel. The best way to travel is what is best for you. You'll see all these TikTok videos that are telling you that this is the best way to travel and they'll give advice, and at times it can be helpful. But I did a massive Excel spreadsheet before I traveled of like dates and locations that I'd go to and the times it will take me, like slightly insane. Makes sense why I'm a Virgo, super organized. But when I was traveling, nothing went to plan, and that was the best plan. And I feel that was the best way for me because there were times that I wanted to extend my stay in certain cities, and then there were some cities that I didn't like so much. So it gave me the flexibility to be like, one day I'll go here, one day I'll go there, and I can do it in my own time with no pressure. It's also taught me to not be so attached to plans as someone who loves a plan. Nothing wrong with a little bit of stability, and I do like a vague plan. But sometimes plans change, and that's okay. But just remember that just because Sarah decided to do 8 cities in 1 month doesn't mean that you need to do the same thing. Travel according to what you like. Figure out what you actually enjoy. Is it caves? Is it mountains? Is it beaches? Is it cities? And as a side note, for some mini advice, if you are traveling for a longer period, try to have normal days. So that might just be taking some time out in your hotel, hostel, wherever you're staying, or just going for a coffee. Just have a normal, boring day like you would as if you were back home. And I say that because when you're traveling and you're constantly on the go, it can become quite exhausting at times. And that way you feel like you're actually soaking in the time effectively and you're resting, you're relaxed, you're not constantly on the go. And I just felt like it really helped me stay balanced. Anyways, that is 5 pieces of advice that I would give. As you can see, again, I'm in the most oddest of settings. There's been so many people going back and forth. But this is the reality of podcasting on the go. And as tricky as it can be at times to find a location to record, I'm also grateful that A, I can record, and B, it makes me more confident and give less of a shit about what's going on in my background and just go for it. In terms of my mental health, I feel amazing. I feel alive. I feel balanced. And I feel very aware of my existence in terms of feeling like everything happens for a reason. I feel like I was meant to come to Mumbai. I'm only going to mention it in this podcast. So if you hear it here, you know, but I did some past life regressions whilst I was in Mumbai, and I've learned a lot about myself. That is not something that I'm going to be openly disclosing on my Instagram or social media platforms for now. I think it might be something that I talk about in the future. It's very mind-blowing, and not a lot of people my age actually get to experience that. So if you can experience it, I'd really recommend it. The sooner you do it, the better it is, in my opinion. And it's not scary at all. It's not like what you see in the films where it's like, oh my God, you're going to see something so drastic and scary. It's not like that at all. You're completely conscious, but you get to tap into your subconscious. And since doing that, I just feel a lot more aware and realized that nothing is a coincidence. The word coincidence doesn't actually exist in Sanskrit or Punjabi. Sanskrit is, I believe, one of the oldest languages or texts. But yeah, I feel really good. I'm so relieved I've been able to record this episode. I still get to spend some time with my family in Amritsar. I get to spend New Year's with my auntie and uncle, who I absolutely adore. And fingers crossed, I've recorded now. I'm going to need to edit and I need to post all in one day today, and I have a flight tomorrow at 5 a.m. So wish me luck. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode. If there's anything that you'd like me to talk about more, or if you have any stories that you'd like to share about traveling, or if there's anything that you were able to relate to, or if anything you learned whilst you were traveling, please drop me a DM. I would love to hear your stories and opinions and thoughts. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Sat Shri Akal. Bye.